We've finally come to recognise that we need to be serious about looking after the environment for future generations. And to do that, we are going to have to invest in it. And projects like the Riverine Recovery Project have really demonstrated that that investment creates a massive difference.
Rivers like this naturally would have dried out on a regular basis. Now that's not a viable process for using the river as a resource for water, for irrigation, etc., because they need that water every year. So the locks hold water in the Murray River permanently, and so it's always at a particular height. In this particular area, it's 16.3 metres depth. All of these lakes are actually lower than that, so they're constantly filled with water when the locks are in operation.
That area permanently being inundated meant anything that's not able to cope with permanent inundation basically dies.
So one of the key components of the Riverine Recovery Project has been about introducing an ability to manage the wetlands separate to the river channel. So as the wetlands can go through wetting and drying phases without necessarily having to lift or lower the entire River Murray. And so that's basically meant working with landholders to put regulators on the wetlands, which mean that we stop the water getting from the river into the wetland.
The regulators have made a huge difference. We've got a substantially improved riparian zone, so that's the trees and vegetation that grows around the edge of the lake. The other benefits that we've got from managing these wetlands is that we have a number of threatened species that are dependent on wetlands, that have plant species that have improved.
Having lots of plant structure there in the wetlands is really important because that's the real habitat for these animals. Getting that vegetation right really does start driving a whole lot more up the food chain.
Seeing these wildlife back again, these birds and that back again, you know something positive is happening. That's proof out there, watching these birds back again.
One of the problems that the river faces at the moment is carp, invasive species that have caused a lot of damage to the wetland ecosystems. Putting carp screens on the wetlands as part of those regulators is to try and reduce those carp impacts within a wetland.
The wetland is really part of the river. It's just where the water goes when it spills out of the river. You improve the health of the wetland, you are naturally improving the health of the river as well, and even beyond that, with a good healthy environment, I think it's of benefit to everything that depends on it, including people.
The health of these floodplains are not just important for the environment, they're also just as important for irrigation, because irrigators require good, clean, fresh water. If it goes saline, that water becomes unviable for them, and the health of the floodplains actually manages that salinity issue. So we're not just managing this river purely from an environmental point of view, we're managing it for all the uses that the river has. Lake Walpolul used to be a very saline lake. It was 2 or 3 times saltier than the sea, followed by putting regulators in 2014. That lake is recovering dramatically in terms of its condition and health.
The water saved at these sites by reducing the evaporative losses is water that's there and useful for the environment elsewhere in the river system. So that we can do things like run big floodplain regulators, we can do weir pool manipulations. So it really is a project that reaps local benefit, but then more widely across the Murray-Darling Basin.
since they've implemented the regulators, it really has improved our community in that we just seem to have so many people now coming through and staying in our local caravan park and wanting to go down and see the beautiful wildlife that's now there. And that wasn't there a couple of years ago. We're getting some rare species that we've never seen before, and really noticing it within the community that people are coming and staying and actually wanting to bushwalk and go out and take their cameras, and that brings money into our local community.
Whenever these construction programs are taking place, there's a large number of regional people who are employed.
We certainly saw the effects of it, or the local subcontractors up there. They had some confidence to go and invest in new plant and equipment to come onto this project, given its time frame and dollar value. But also just the hotels, the motels, the local service station, the hardware store are all generating revenue out of having these construction projects occurring in their neighbourhood. The list of achievements for Riverine Recovery is really significant. It's not just the 30-odd wetlands where we have improved our ability to manage wetting and drying. It's the many, many kilometres of creeks which we have cleared out to enable better flows. It's the 440 kilometres of river where whirlpool manipulation is soon to be implemented on a regular basis. It's the improvement to infrastructure on the Pike and Catarapco floodplains to enable fish to move through these floodplains, in some instances for the first time in 100 years. But it's also some of the community projects which were funded, where 10 community groups were successful in getting grants to deliver the projects that they thought were important. So for most of us who have been involved in the Riverine Recovery Project, we would certainly regard it as having been a success.
What this has done to us since the project has given us another heartbeat. Because I'm going to stop there, because I got nothing else more to say but a lot of thank you. We can fall at people's knees, on their knees, and fall on their, down to their feet and say thank you. Looking eyes, looking eyes. Tells you a story just that.
The benefits of that $100 million spend over the next 10, 30, 50, 100 years are really the legacy and the significance that a project like this leaves behind for the environment, leaves behind for the community, leaves behind for the social fabric of communities like the Riverland and the Lower River Murray in South Australia.